mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 5 of HBO's Industry, entitled Kitchen Season. It probably felt like an entire season's worth of time passed for Harper in this kitchen, having these conversations with her brother, and the time that she spent in this restaurant looking to see if he was there. But we get a lot of, I don't want to say character development, but a little bit more contextualization to who Harper is in this episode, and we do get a little bit more information about what happened with her brother. But I want to start by saying that I feel like this episode did a lot for both Harper's character and Robert's character. You know, I talked in the video for episodes 1 through 4 about how I was going to have a lot more to say about Robert this week, and I just find Robert to be a very interesting and complex and complicated character, and I feel like they're doing such great stuff with him, and I think it's being overshadowed by everything that's happening with Harper and the actress who plays Harper. I'm sorry, I don't know her name by heart, but you know, the actress who plays Harper does an incredible job, and I think that and Yaz's stuff kind of overshadows Robert. And I think they're doing a lot of great stuff with Robert's character. But I am going to start with Harper because I think at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that for Harper and Yaz, this was a pretty big episode. So Harper ends up kind of like stealing her way onto this trip, manipulating her way onto this trip to Berlin with Yaz and Jackie. Their goal, their plan there is to meet with Anna and to kind of like transition Anna from working with Yaz to working with Jackie, because Yaz is planning on this full-time move to wealth management. Harper, suspecting that her brother is in Berlin, finagles her way onto this trip via Eric. And I gotta say, I only got one line here for Eric, and it's just explaining what he did, approving this trip. Approving not the trip, but Harper replacing equity on this trip. And, you know, there's a funny line where his assistant, his weird, annoying assistant, asked him if he went through some binder, whatever. But I think when this season is over, ultimately we will all collectively say that it didn't live up to season 1 because of the angle they took with Eric. Eric's one of the most interesting characters on the show. He was one of the most interesting characters on the show. And now it's almost like they're treating the character the same way that the show is treating Eric. Like this idea of like, hey, we're going to promote you, but really it's like we're pulling you off the table. You can't handle this. We're going to shelve you, but we're going to make it sound like it's a favor to you. And it almost kind of feels like the show has shelved Eric too. And I feel like that's a big mistake. And this whole idea of pushing Eric kind of like into the background, I hope that it's for the purpose of something big later, and that it's not something where like, you know, maybe they're not seeing eye to eye with that actor, so they're kind of like starting the process of writing him out of the show. I don't know, but Eric was such a great character in season 1, and it bothers me a bit to see him being really pushed to the background during this season, to the point where we really only see him in that scene, I believe, just that one. And isn't it convenient that his new job just so happens to be one that Harper needs to utilize in the very next episode after he gets put in that job? Like I didn't quite roll my eyes, but I almost rolled my eyes. Like all the people at Pier Point, as big as this building is, Harper needs to get on this trip, and it just so happens Eric is the person who can make it happen. How convenient. But like I said, they're passing Anna on from Yaz to Jackie, and Harper uses basically her relationship with Anna like, I already know her, so I can smooth things over. But in reality, she suspects that her brother is in Berlin. So if you recall, we see her kind of like stalking via Instagram. She keeps looking at this woman's picture at this restaurant. She clicks on it, taps on it to see who's tagged in the picture, and she goes to the person's profile. It's private. She's been messaging this person. Last message she sent, she called this person a coward. But she believes this person to be her brother. And she makes her way to Berlin under the pretense of working with Anna. But in reality, we could tell she wants to try to see if she can find her brother. So we have a scene at a restaurant, a kitchen season, where they're supposed to be meeting with Anna, but Anna postpones until the next day. So it's just Jackie, Yaz, and Harper. Jackie decides she's going to take off, and Harper and Yaz talk, and Harper shares that she had actually been hoping to see her brother there. And this scene kind of bothered me because I'm watching the scene, mind you, I'm high, but it's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm high. I'm in my garage. I'm smoking cigars, chilling. I'm watching this scene, and I'm like, why does Harper keep looking to the kitchen like that? And then, I don't know at what point, at some point I was like, oh, wait. Oh, like everything came together just too late because I was high. It was like, everything made sense. Like the Instagram photo, before she left for Berlin, we saw her like, look up the location, and then look at it on a map to see where it was, and then looking at the kitchen constantly. I'm like, oh, she's expecting to find her brother. And I'm like, oh, this is sick. Like she like manipulated her way onto this trip under the pretense of wanting to talk to Anna, making this transition go smoothly, but really she just wants to find her brother. At the same time, we've been wondering what's going on with her brother. And at that point, it felt very much like Succession, where you get a wealth of information without someone explaining the wealth of information to you. No one said she's here to see her brother. It was just like, I just pieced it together. And I'm like, okay, I like where this is going. And then like 10 seconds after I piece it together, she tells Yaz, I'm here to see my brother. I'm like, like I really wish they hadn't explained it. And I get it, because how else would Yaz know that that's what her goal was? So then when they actually do find him and Yaz is there, she kind of like understands the situation. She understands the importance of the situation. And then, Yaz is familiar with her relationship with her brother as DVD is. So like, in the interest of making it so that Yaz knows what's going on, I get it. But man, I hated that they explained something that I thought was really cool that they didn't explain and that they didn't need to explain. But I guess they looked at it like, Yaz has to know, so this is how we're going to do it. But, man, that sucked. So they leave, and Harper's like, I got to try one more time. And she goes back in, and she sees her brother in the kitchen washing dishes. His name is John Daniel. I don't know if she calls him JD or not, but the captions called him JD. So that's what he goes by. I love how she told him that she recognized his hands in that picture with that, I think he said her name was Helene, the woman that he's been seeing. But yeah, I love that she used that. Her stalk game is proper. Like recognizing her brother's hands, the tag, and then the location tag, and finding that out. And then, of course, of having the ability to just go to Berlin. But yeah, her stalk game is proper. So like I said, her brother's there, John Daniel. He's weird. She's trying to figure out why he bailed on her, but she's also learning that he's like a really heavy drug user, which is kind of weird for her. We learned that, essentially, I'm just going to kind of like wrap up what we learned throughout the course of several conversations that take place. Like, I mean, they're like in a club at one point. Then they're at, I think, like his dealer's house or something. No, they're at his kitchen where he works at, but after the place is closed. So all kinds of locations. And throughout this, we essentially we learn a couple of things. One, we learned that they both hate their mother. And then we learned that from Harper's perspective, she felt that she was supportive of him in a burgeoning tennis career. She was supportive and motivational to him. And she's like, I don't understand why you would leave. And a lot of toxic people, and I'm not necessarily even saying or agreeing that Harper is toxic, but the idea of someone being shitty and not realizing that they're being shitty makes that person even shittier to me, because you're so shitty that like the idea that you could be shitty is so foreign and just ridiculous to you that it doesn't enter your mind. And then you end up in a situation like Harper where you're like, I was just trying to help. And he's like, you're a selfish piece of shit, like a narcissist. And he's going off on her. So like, I don't really have much trouble believing him, because if you know it, and now you will if you're someone who watches this show or watch this video, if you know it, you see it a lot. The idea of people being so, I'm going to stick with shitty, so shitty to other people. And then when someone goes, hey, that was shitty, then they go, what did I do? Why are you so mad? I don't understand. Like, because all they're concerned with is themselves, so they don't understand how their actions impact other people. And that's what it seems happened with Harper and her brother. So from her perspective, she was being helpful. Why are you so mad? I was just helping. And then he's like, you forced me to go play while I was having a panic attack, which is now, that's got to hit even harder for Harper, because what has Harper been doing lately? Having panic attacks. So how would she have felt if, say, Robert had come along when she had her panic attack at Rift Day and was like, get back in there, you know, he sound like his deep voice, but he's like got a lot of food in his mouth, get back in there. Like, forced her to go back in there and finish her presentation mid panic attack. I think she'd probably hold that against Robert pretty heavily. So that's essentially where it seems like he decided that he was done with both her mother and her, and he took off. And that's where we kind of ended with them. Yeah, I feel like after that conversation, that was the last we saw of them together, where he actually reveals that she made him go back out and play after the panic attack, and we don't see them again until they actually meet with Anna, which I'll talk about that scene very briefly at the end here. So on this trip as well, Yas finds out that her dad, and they don't say this directly, but I feel like I'd say this with like 95% confidence that this is accurate. Looks like her dad had a kid with the nanny. And that explains why when Yas was talking about, yeah, when I go to Berlin, I might try to see Teresa or whatever. He's like, Teresa? I don't know about that. But then she's like, well, why would that be a problem? Then he had to play it off. So when she's there and she's high on all these drugs and she's going through what looked like a ledger, and I'm assuming that's how she got Teresa's address, and then she shows up at the house. And one thing that I thought was good that they did kind of subtly in this conversation between Yas and Teresa is that when we, the audience, and Yas are kind of collectively realizing that Teresa's kid, the father, is probably Yaz's father, I felt like Yas was about to say that directly, and then she kind of cuts herself off and goes, how old were you? And I thought that was interesting. And she says, I was legal, if that's what you're getting at. And I again, that was another situation where I didn't necessarily need the I was legal. Although, I mean, I guess she needed to respond. But the fact that Yas had to ask already implies that she was too young. Because if Yas is unsure, like maybe she was 16, maybe she was 20, I don't know what the legal age is in London, but whatever the age may be, the fact that her first real question that's specific to the relationship with the father, aside from did you have a relationship with my father, is how old were you? Like, that tells me that she was young enough for Yas to have to ask, and then that then reflects even more poorly on the father, because now we already look at him as a cheater. We already look at somebody who will not just cheat, but also pay them off to be quiet. We know that he will then also potentially impregnate these people and make them sign NDAs as well. And then just the nasty cherry on top is he might have been doing it while she was underage. So tying back to the comment that I made in my video for episodes 1 through 4 about Yas feeling like she needed to kind of like almost have like a childlike admiration for him, or at least he needs to perceive it as that. Like she needs to act more like a child and less like an independent adult. I think that too ties in to this idea that maybe her father just has some weird kind of thing for young girls. And I don't know if that's the direction it's going to go, but I feel like the show has planted enough seeds to where if we get to a point where her dad gets caught up with an underage girl, I'm going to be 0% surprised. I mean, I'm going to be surprised in the sense of like, oh, this is a cool twist on the show, but it's not going to surprise me as a development for that character because it tracks with everything that we've seen so far. So moving on to Gus real quick. Again, they've really been underutilizing Gus this season. He gets a promotion. I think her name's Aurora. She says that Amazon's trying to buy Fast Aid, but the government really doesn't want Jeff Bezos-led healthcare. So they kind of want Rykan to stay with this. And she wants him to basically be by her side while she handles this. And he seems like grateful, but kind of grateful for the opportunity, but deep down regretful that he kind of has to say yes, because I think we're meant to gather that he is finding fulfillment in helping people. So being pulled away from that, the small office, helping the guy with the human dog shit, whatever, and helping people, that seemed to be working for him. And now I think he kind of feels like he's getting more back into the corporate shit again, and that doesn't really work for him. But this whole situation with Fast 8 could then now connect Gus back to the Pierpoint and Harper storyline, so we could see something come out of that. But it's really interesting to me. I think when this season is said and done, we're gonna look back at the underutilization of Gus and Eric as the underutilization of Gus and the direction they took Eric as the two flaws that make this season not quite as good as season 1. But again, there's 3 more episodes left. I'm gonna give it those 3. Moving on to Robert, like I said, probably my favorite character, just the complexity of it. But he is given a mission to woo a potential recruit. Now, I didn't like the way this conversation with DVD went. Like, it started off where we infer that this is what's supposed to happen, that he's supposed to kind of like, be put on a little bit of that Robert charm. And DVD just keeps talking, to where he just goes, charmer. And I'm like, man, I figured that out like 5 descriptions ago. Like, you didn't have to actually explicitly say that's what he was supposed to do. Because you guys who've been around my channel for a while, you guys know I do not like when shows spell shit out for me. Treat me like I have some kind of sense, like I have some kind of intellect. So I don't like when they explain things. So that's why I didn't like Harper explicitly saying to Yaz that she was looking for her brother, because I had already read between the lines and figured that out. And I didn't like how DVD just kept talking to the point where he just says, charmer. And I'm like, okay, got it, asshole. So Robert is, again, he's still largely sober. He's not doing drugs. And he finds out that Clement died. Now, if you guys remember, Clement Cowan is the guy who worked at his desk, who I think he had that one client, and him, Robert, and I think someone else were trying to kind of like woo that client's, what was it, like his son or something like that? What was his name? I can't remember his name. But last season, they were trying to like kind of like woo that guy. And Clement was the only person who was kind of nice to Robert. He gave him that suit. You remember Robert went to his house after he got fired from Pierpoint, because that one guy, his one client, retired or whatever, and the younger relative or whoever that Robert and I can't remember who were supposed to be wooing was like, yeah, I'm not really giving my business to some fucking first-year students. First-year employees. So Clement ended up getting fired, and Robert visited him, and he gave him that suit. Like, so that's Clement. That's the whole thing. So Robert found out that guy died, and was very clearly very broken up about it, by the way, which kind of surprised me that he was that broken up about it. But again, I get it, because he respected this guy. This guy gave him some really good advice. He was pretty kind to him, and he was pretty standoffish toward everyone else. So I can see why Robert would get find a little bit closer of a connection with Clement than with anyone else. And I think too, I wonder if we're also meant to infer that he OD'd, because once he got fired, every time Robert saw him, he was doing mad drugs. Like, I can't remember where they were at, but like Robert walked into some room, and the guy's like, either like sit down and do these drugs with us, or leave and close the door, or leave and close the door, something like that. And then when Robert was over there I think he was trying to like give the suit back, and the guy's like, no, keep it. He was doing some heavy drugs then, and it just makes me wonder, maybe he OD'd, like, because he said in season 1, he's like, I need this job, like it's the only thing that's keeping me together. So he did imply that having that job and that responsibility was the only thing keeping him alive, really. So yeah, I bet he probably did OD or drink too much or something like that. But Robert's assigned to woo this potential recruit, and he goes with Venetia, the new employee that Yaz has been degrading for all of the season. And I love the scene where he shares that he sang in the choir, and that was him. Every time Robert tries to open up, he gets treated like the guy that we all think Robert's gonna be. Like, we think Robert's gonna be that douchebag, cocky, drug abusing, smashing every girl there is, just obnoxious turd who has no complexity at all. He's just dick and drugs, and that's all he is. He has no mind. He's not smart. Like, that's who we think Robert is supposed to be. And he tries to show that complexity, and he always gets treated like that guy when he's never actually proven himself to be that guy, aside from the drug use, obviously. But he shares that he sings in this choir, and Venetia doesn't believe him to the point where she's like laughing, and he just goes, "Yeah, I'm just fucking with you." Like, that was a sad scene to me. Like, I feel like Robert has a lot of scenes that are sad. And he has multiple in this episode, but in general, Robert has a lot of sad scenes, these scenes where he tries to open up and no one wants to hear him. And that's why I love Robert's character, because he's not who you think he would be, but everyone still treats him like he's who you think he would be. And so after he lies and says that he was just messing with her, he ends up going out and he visits his dad at a bar. His dad is a bartender. The dad treats him like shit. He lashes out, throws his money around, makes his dad serve him, all kinds of stuff. And then he also, I'm trying to place the timing of it, because I'm trying to remember when he got so it was then. That's when he got drunk. So he gets drunk at his dad's bar, and the dad's bar trip was supposed to be in between, I think, like the start of the day and the dinner that him and Venetia are supposed to be wooing this new recruit at. And she actually asked him out. She asked him out for a drink before they go to dinner. He turned it down to go see his father, which is admirable, except for it just didn't go how he wanted it to. But he gets wasted. He wakes up in like what appears to be his own puke on the ground outside his dad's house. Actually, no, I got my timelines mixed up. That was after the dinner. He was lit at the dinner because he started doing drugs again, all this kind of stuff. He was lit at the dinner and was totally obnoxious. Venetia was totally turned off. I couldn't tell. I feel like it was kind of working on the recruit, though, like looking at her face, but I couldn't really tell for sure. But he's a complete douche at this dinner. And then after the dinner, I'm assuming that he continued to drink or whatever. That's when he ends up passed out in his own puke in the street in front of his dad's house. And I like how when he goes in there and they have this conversation, Robert asks him, "Are your kids here?" And he goes, "Your brothers? Yeah, they're here." I like how they subtly show the difference in how they perceive the kids, but how they perceive the kids is less about how they perceive the kids and more about how they perceive the relationship with one another. Because it's like, it's hard. I think it's hard for Robert to consider those his brothers if he doesn't have a relationship with his father. Because if his father is essentially a stranger, who the fuck are those kids to him? So like, I thought that was an interesting little bit of terminology that I think helps us understand the relationship between Robert and his father just a little bit better. And then finally, at the end of the episode, we get to the meeting with Anna. And even though Yaz told Jackie earlier in the episode to basically be quiet and let her and Harper do all the talking, Jackie ends up doing all the talking because Yaz and Harper are, I believe, a combination of too hungover from all the drugs that they did the night before, but also still reeling from the information that they got with Yaz finding out about her father and Harper finding out about her brother and why he left the way he did. So really good episode, really get into the episode. I mentioned a couple of my issues that I had, which both revolve around the show explaining things that I thought were already there on the screen that didn't need to be explained. But, it happens every now and then. That's something Succession doesn't do, which is why I wouldn't say, this show is on par with Succession. Succession does not do that. But right below it, I would say I love this show. I think it's incredibly compelling, incredibly well acted. And it does a lot of the right stuff. So I'm going to wrap up real quick with a couple of thoughts. DVD and Harper fucking at the beginning in that car. Why did they get out when Rishi pulled up? Because now you're forcing this awkward conversation when you could have just stayed in the car and like ducked down or something. And he gets out of the car, he goes in, and that's it. And I also thought the frequency with which DVD was saying pussy just didn't ring right. Like, it sounded way too forced. Like, I felt like I was rolling my eyes to the point, like, I'm pretty sure I saw Harper rolling her eyes, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I also like how they constantly discuss Eric as being promoted rather than the actuality of it, that he was being shelved. Like, they make us, like, I feel like when you're talking to Eric, if you're DVD and that other guy, Bill, you're going to present it as a promotion, as an opportunity. But everyone on the floor knows what it is. And even though Eric's not there to feel any kind of way, they still talk about it as if he was there. Like, oh, you got promoted. You know, y'all know what happened to Eric. I like that Yas said that she thought that this whole time Ja Rule was Ya Rule. And now I feel like that should be her name, like her nickname, like Ya Rule. Oh, I also liked how they put up the captions in the club rather than making it so, which is not really feasible. Like if you have a camera in the club and you're filming a show, if the music's playing, everyone's dancing, we're not gonna hear this dialogue. But anytime you're watching a show, we can always just hear the dialogue. It's just perfect. And I like how they didn't do that. Like we didn't get to hear the dialogue, or you could hear it very little, and they just put captions up to, yeah, this music is loud. You can kind of hear it a little bit, but I thought that was kind of cool too. And the last thing that I thought was interesting, how many fucking languages does Yas know? Like she starts speaking German here. I'm like, she knows English, German, Italian, French, right? Yeah, I think at least those 4. Like, man, she knows a lot of languages. So that's all I got for this week. I will see you guys next week, probably Tuesday night, with talking about episode 6. And until then, peace.